Councilor Roden.
They meet with my approval. I vote
Okay.
that we accept the minutes.
Okay, I
I'll second
think
that.
as a motion, second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And I hear no opposition. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Karen, I don't think there's anybody out there for visitor or public comment. Is that correct? There's nobody out there to do that. Okay, we're going to go immediately to the audit report. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Butch. Are you opening the door on this? Go ahead, Gloria. Did you want to make any introductory comments?
Yes, we have tonight with us Tanya Moffett from our audit firm, Marina and Company, and she will be just giving you a summary on how the audit went and how we're doing.
Good evening and welcome to the Independent City Council.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I'm here to present the June 30, 2020 financial statements. As you are probably aware, it's a little bit later than we normally get the financial statements to you, and I'm coming down there to visit you. This is a new experience for all of us, going through an audit 100% remotely. So we were not on site for the audit for the City of Independence or the Independence Urban Renewal Agency. It went very smoothly as it could go when you're trying to do things that are new, just based on all of the COVID protocols. I'm going to talk to you about the audited financial statements. The auditor's responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit. We conduct our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to the financial statements audits contained in government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Those standards require that we plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. An audit involves performing procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. The procedures selected depend on auditor's judgment, including the assessment of the risk of material misstatements in the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error. In making those risk assessments, the auditors considers internal controls relevant to the entity's preparation of the fair presentation of the financial statements in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the entity's internal controls. Accordingly, we express no such opinion. An audit also includes evaluating the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of significant accounting estimates made by management, as well as evaluating the overall presentation of the financial statements. We believe that the audit evidence we obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis of our audit opinions. We completed our audit of the financial statements related disclosures of the city, and we have issued our reports which contain an unmodified or a clean opinion, which is the highest level of a financial statement opinion that we can give on a financial statement. That our reports are included on page 1, 2, 3, and 140 and 141 of the audited financial statements. One thing that I would like to note is that a great place to look in the financial statements is the management discussion and analysis, because it has comparative information from the prior year to the current year. There's also a section called the introductory section, as well as the statistical section. The statistical section is based off of the comprehensive annual financial report, and that's an award that the city goes for, and the city received that for their June 30, 2019 financial statements. We anticipate that the city will also receive that award for the June 30, 2020 financial statements. The statistical section is another great place to look because it has historical information and it includes 10 years worth of historical data for the city. We also issued the audited financial statements for the Independence Urban Renewal Agency, and we had an unmodified or clean opinion on that as well. The agency's introductory section has not been audited by us, and accordingly, we express no opinion. We also issued a single audit, which is anytime that the city receives over $750,000 of federal funds, then there is a federal compliance audit component. This year, it was primarily due to the CARES funding. We did have internal control deficiency that we noted for the major federal program. And that was primarily due to the fact that these funds came out and the rules kept changing. And so it was very difficult to know how to spend those corona relief funds as the rules kept changing. The feds have had history of doing this where they give the money out and then they make up the rules as you're playing the game. So if you equate it to bowling, if we were sitting there bowling with bumpers the whole time and then they took away the bumpers. And so it's a completely different game when you're doing that. And so that sometimes happens with federal funds because they aren't exactly sure how they want the entities to spend those money or those funds. And so we did have a finding, and the city has responded with their views of responsible officials. And they noted that the CRF guidance was very minimal and reimbursement requests and receipts was based on the best interpretation of the criteria at that time. It was well after the end of the fiscal year when Oregon state auditors reviewed our May disbursements. Even they were unclear on the interpretations and the criteria for public safety payroll. Following the state's audits division's review, Oregon DAS reviewed the state auditor's findings with city staff and charges of the CRF grants and made recommendations for categorizing public safety and dedicated payroll to the most applicable and criteria in the draft guidance. This was 5 and 6 months following our year end. So the city developed and bridge documents based on Oregon DAS's recommendations in order to capture all expenditures between May 2020 disbursement requests through the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020, as well as the recategorization of public safety and dedicated payroll to match the criteria and interpretation by the state auditors. During this process, the city has developed a better understanding and program for documenting and timing of the grant expenditures. The city will review audit findings with all personnel who work with grants and to improve the understanding and use of the internal controls and monitoring the grants. We believe that the city's response is appropriate in these circumstances based on the way the funding came out and the rules were being written as you were spending them. We also issue required communication for those charged with governance, which are the AUC letters. And so I'm here to tell you that there were no restrictions placed on our audit. There were no significant difficulties when we asked for the information. City staff gave it to us in a very quick manner. There was one new accounting policy that was adopted, and that's GASB 95, but that basically postponed some additional government accounting standards. So if you compare the June 30, 2019 financial statements and the June 30, 2020 financial statements, they are comparable because there's no new changes in accounting standards. The Government Accounting Standard Board likes to make a lot of changes. And so it hasn't been very often that I can stand up here in front of you and say they're comparable. This is one time that I can say that. I know there's a lot of changes coming in the future, and I'm not going to probably be able to say that again next year. So then management also there's accounting estimates in a financial statements. And so some of those accounting estimates include things like depreciation. We don't know exactly how long a police car is going to last because they may have it 2 months and then something might happen to that police car. It might last for 10 years when a standard car, maybe police car only lasts 7 years. So the city uses what's based off of their best estimate on how long those assets are going to last. And then they depreciate it over those number of years. So that's an estimate, the depreciation, as well as compensated absences payable, which means that city staff accrue vacation payable. And when they use that, it may be at a little bit higher rate. So maybe they've had a cost of living increase, or maybe they've had a salary increase. So that amount might actually be a little bit different. It's based off of what their current salary is as of June 30, 2020, what their accrued compensated absences are at that point in time. So it might actually be a little bit higher than that, but that's our best estimate. And then there's also an allowance for doubtful accounts, which means that if the city is not anticipating to receive some funding, like receive all their accounts receivable, bad debt expense, then there's an allowance for doubtful accounts. The largest estimate on the city's financial statements is the net pension liability. The one good thing is the net pension liability is not calculated by city staff. That is given to them by the state PERS actuary. But it also is one of those numbers that fluctuates. And so there's a sensitivity analysis in the notes to the financial statements, and it shows that 1% difference can make a significant difference in what that pension liability is. So take that with a grain of salt. As long as the city is making their required required annual payments, then they will theoretically cover that pension liability in the future. So as long as they're making those payments are based off of what that pension liability will be in the future. So as long as they're making those required contributions, which the City of Independence is, then it will theoretically cover that large pension liability on the financial statements. And then the last one is the net other post-employment healthcare benefit liability, which is another liability that is calculated by actuaries, and the city does not calculate that. So those are the primary estimates in the financial statements. Like cash is cash. That's easy. I can go to the bank and I can say how much cash is in the bank. But the estimates are those things that are, they're not as black and white. But we believe that the city's management's judgments and accounting estimates were appropriate in the circumstances and in clear guidance with accounting standards. We didn't find any transactions entered into by the city that lacked authoritative guidance, and there were no material misstatements noted for proper presentation of the financial statements. In some situations, the city may decide to consult with other accountants about auditing or accounting matters, similar to obtaining a second opinion on certain situations. The city used a consultant to assist with the city's drafting of the city's financial statements. We noted that there is a report that we add to any Oregon municipal financial statements, and it's a required report by Oregon state regulators. So the Oregon state legislature has said, municipal auditors, we want you to look at some very specific things. So some of those things include Oregon budget law. They have us look to make sure that the city is following Oregon budget law, posting the notices so that the public knows so that they can come to meetings about the budgeting process. We ensure that the information that's posted agrees to the final information and all of those things. So it's not just looking at the numbers, it's also making sure that they're in compliance with those notifications so that people can attend those meetings. We also look at programs funded by outside sources, such as the single audit, when you receive grants, that you're in compliance with those grant requirements. Highway funds or gas tax, that the city is using those funds appropriately, as well as public purchasing and contracts, so ORS 279. So when the city does a large project, they advertise for entities to bid on those projects, and we go and make sure that the notifications were appropriate, that the bids were, that they looked at the bids appropriately, and then they selected the best fit for the city of those individual contracts and purchasing agents. So those reports for the city are on page 140 of the city's financial statements. And then for the urban renewal, it's on page 23. We had a few findings where the expenditures exceeded appropriations in funds, and those are listed on page 140 and 141 of the city's financial statements. And then we had one fund, which is the Urban Renewal Projects Fund, that the Tourism and Events Fund had a deficit budgetary fund balance of $49,633. That, as you can anticipate, that was tourism went down last year and revenue was not coming in like it has in the past. So We have appreciated the opportunity to audit for the City of Independence as well as the Independence Urban Renewal Agency. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions for the presenter? Well, I want to thank you, Tanya, for making a nice presentation. Gloria, is there anything you need to add at this point?
I'll just add that I have sent out the statements so that you can look at them, the whole audit report, and you'll be receiving that from Karen. And then it will also be posted on the website.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tanya, for taking the time to visit with us this evening.
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay.
And I'd like to thank the finance department as well as city management for being very responsive and being able to get us the information quickly. So
Great. We are customer service oriented.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to continue moving forward. I have a number of just small pieces to keep you folks up to speed on, so I'm going to work off my list. As you know, I've talked to you about Highway 22 and 51. I was able to submit to both the county and our federal representative senators and representatives 14 letters of support indicating support for an overpass and related improvements to the junction of Highway 22 and 51. And we're going to continue working to try to move that project forward. Some of you may have seen on Facebook and some of the social media, a number of us in town were involved with Pacific Source in doing a video encouraging people to get vaccinations. And the mayor, fire chief, myself, school superintendent, representatives from St. Patrick's Church and others were all engaged in helping promote vaccinations because it is very important that goes on. The new executive director for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, Scott Dodson, I had him here on town. He's brand new to the region. He's from the East Coast, and so gave him the long tour of Independence, and he now understands, and he has now come several times to eat and enjoy our downtown and eats and drinks here. So things seem to have gone well. Recently attended the LOC board of directors meeting, the League of Oregon Cities, and as a past board member, I get to participate in that and add my words and suggestions as they move forward in the legislature. I met with Paul Evans recently about the American Recovery Act and some of the things that the state's looking at. Mr. Pessamir and I met with Senator Deb Patterson, provided her detailed information about system development charges and how they're figured and how it really works in the real world, and they were very appreciative of that. As you know, that I serve on the both regional solutions and the Mid-Willamette Valley Economic Development Revitalization, serving Polk, Marion, and Yamhill. We had a recent meeting. The governor and the legislature have asked for focus areas that out of her 10-point plan that we think the top 3 areas for this particular region. And so this area, the group came up with the focus areas being supporting resilient rural communities, getting small businesses back on their feet, and investing in Oregon infrastructure, because the state's going to have some dollars and cents to invest. And so we're suggesting that those are the areas in this region that need to be addressed. Coming up in this next week, I'll be meeting with representatives of Congressman Schrader's office and also representatives from Senator Wyden's office, talking about federal projects that are going on. We'll also be meeting with Regional Solutions as we look at assisting local governments and businesses throughout the region in moving forward with a number of projects. So that's, lest you think that I am just sitting watching grass grow through my toes. With that, let me turn it over to Mr. Pessamir to give a city manager's report, please.
So thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do have a number of items tonight. So just to let you know, Pacific Power sent us a communication, which I know they've sent out through their social media and other channels as well. But I just wanted to underscore it because starting April 1st, Pacific Power began offering additional assistance to customers Eligible customers may receive help from one of 2 Assistance Plus options for their primary residence. Assistance Plus options are available to eligible customers who are behind on their electric bill and have been financially impacted by COVID. So there's 2 options there. One is an instant grant. I receive a one-time bill credit of up to $500. So that's a significant amount of money. The other is to extended payment match. So if you enroll in a payment agreement, Pacific Power will match the monthly installment payment until the arrearment is paid in full for 12 months or until $1,000 maximum is met. So they encourage anybody with concerns about their ability to pay to contact them. They have on their website a number to contact them, as well as they have an Assistance Plus portion of their website where people can go and apply online. I want to underscore this, and I'm doing this for a reason, is because in both utility and rental assistance program around the states, there is still money out there that hasn't been spent from the CARES Fund Act and from other fund acts that have been there to assist people. So if people are behind either on their utilities or on their rent, there are programs out there to help them if they qualify. I think Pacific Power's gone way beyond normal to make sure that people can qualify for this. So if anybody is listening, or if you know anybody and can pass that on, it can definitely be a big benefit to them on their power bill. Statement of economic interest. I'm pretty certain everybody is done with that because it is due on April 15th, which is 2 days from now. And so if you haven't done your statement of economic interest for some reason, you should get it done. They do take that seriously, and they will issue you a nasty letter and maybe even a fine if you don't get it done. So you probably don't want that to be discussed during your next campaign. So just FYI. Monmouth Independence Community Paint Project happened over the weekend, and I heard it went really well. Probably would have been better with a little bit better weather, but it's just an effort to kind of spread some joy and 1,000 rocks throughout the Independence and Monmouth area. So a bunch of volunteers got together, organized that. Ramon was involved in that project, and they're looking at maybe trying to do something on a monthly basis in order to just do a little bit of fun projects and engage people in a creative way. Just a number of agreements I want to tell you that I have executed or are going to be executing very shortly. The first is a preliminary engineering services reimbursement agreement with the Union Pacific to begin the evaluation of the crossing of the railroad south of town. That's something we've talked about for the Southern Arterial. We've actually been working on this for quite a while with both ODOT, ODOT Rail, as well as Union Pacific. And that really kicks off the official process for us to begin the evaluation of how to get across that rail crossing, hopefully without an overpass. So we have done that. I have finally, after much effort and much learning on my part, I must admit, have brought on a consultant to help us with some of our communications. That process was challenging because I recognized pretty quickly that we wanted a number of different things from someone, and that was really hard to find a consultant that could do everything that we wanted. At one point, I thought about breaking it up into 2 pieces, but I'm glad to tell you that we were able to find someone who could actually not only do the content that we were looking for in the short term, but also provide us with some analysis and evaluation to figure out how we can communicate better over the long term. So we have brought J-Core LLC on to provide 4 things over the next 6 months. Well, one is just stories and content for inclusion in all of our communications. So you'll see the first article released in May for the River City Briefs. And all that content will also be shortened and changed and modified and put on our website and other social media channels. So that gets out there. That will be the first of a series of articles and information that we push out. The second thing that they're really working on is to work to see, make sure that we know what our target audience is, and see how residents are consuming the information and which channels we should focus on to be successful in the future. We want to try to make sure that we're actually using our tools that we have, or create new tools if we need to, and make sure that we're actually getting the information to who wants it and who needs it, and in a way that they can consume it easily. So that is an area where we know we need improvement. They're going to come on and reach out to key stakeholders. So some of you will probably be hearing from them in the near future, because they're going to be reaching out to try to figure that out, and they'll be reaching throughout the community to get information. And just again, that was J-Core LLC, who we brought on to help us out. And then the final thing that they're going to be working on is completing a recommended communication structure in 3 different areas. So one is public and internal communications. The second is community and media relations. And then the third is crisis communications. And so all of those areas were areas that we identified that we needed specific help. And they're going to come in and help us with that. I think the goal is really to have this work done, and then to probably bring someone on a permanent basis, is at least what we'll propose. We kind of talked about in the budget, either a probably half-time position, maybe something more, to basically be an internal person that we're hiring on to actually implement all the things that we're doing. And that will specifically include a web page update. We definitely need some significant help there. I've been talking with them and looking at others, and our library does an incredible job on our website, and that's about as far as I'm going to go. We definitely have some good news on there, but we need to be putting content on there regularly in a good way. And we're seeing a lot of hits on our website through the library because they're actually doing a really good job of managing that. So we need to get that worked out. I also executed an agreement with CFM Advocates. They are an Oregon-based federal lobbyist firm. It's just a 2-month agreement, but we will also be going out for a RFP for 3 firms over the next month or so in order to figure this out. One thing that I am discovering very quickly is that there is a lot of opportunities out there at both the federal level, the state level, and even the county level that we need to be dealing with if we want to manage the monies that are coming through the system. And we're really busy. We're pretty much back to normal operations in a lot of different areas, or at least we're busy, and we just simply don't have the resources. And we really honestly never have given much attention to the federal level in order to be successful at. Just in a very short period of time that we have had them, we've learned that appropriation requests are due by the end of this week. So we've been frantically putting together appropriation packages with their assistance, and looking forward to maximizing the amount of monies that the independents can get through the American Rescue Plan, and then any infrastructure plans if they come out. So a lot of work to do there, and glad to have somebody to help us navigate those waters because they are complicated. If you haven't noticed, I think the bridge restriction signs have gone up. At least that's what Marion County is telling me. And so we've talked about that before. Marion County came in and did a presentation on the limitations for the Independence Bridge across the Willamette, limiting that to either 25 or 27 tons, depending on your vehicle type. 4th of July, we talked about this at council priority session. And just to let you know, the priorities that I heard out of there is, 1, be very flexible, and 2, what we can, as long as we stay inside the state guidance. And I think that's kind of what the plan is right now, is a high level of flexibility. The recent changes to the state rules, or guidance, I should say, for event gatherings would allow us to have up to 8,000 people in the Riverview Park area, even if the risk level was high. The numbers go up significantly higher than that. So if it's at a lower level, so but if you're extreme level, it drops down to 50. So 8,000 or 50, depending on what level you're in. So flexibility is the key to success here, and they're working really hard on that. It's going to take a tremendous number of volunteers in order to meet the guidance, but it certainly can be done. We believe as long as the level doesn't go up to extreme. So they're putting a lot of effort into that, and I appreciate that. It's still some big question marks out there, obviously, but hopefully that can be a safe and fun event. And as long as we're in the right risk level and we have enough volunteers, I think that can be accomplished. Just a quick announcement. You probably, if you've driven down Monmouth Street to Main Street, Highway 99 there, the intersection in Monmouth, you probably noticed that the main street is closed. And you're probably wondering why, because ODOT just did a very nice and very expensive project there in order to completely redo that intersection. Well, unfortunately, one of the service stations there that's on the corner had a significant leak of gasoline. They actually lost about 2,500 gallons of gasoline, and that has mitigated into the street. So they are working with DEQ, City of Monmouth, Polk County Fire District are all working together. And primarily at this point, it's Oregon DEQ and ODOT that are really working that project hard. The leak has been stopped, obviously, a long time ago, and DEQ is overseeing the cleanup. And if you have questions, Monmouth has information on their website, but I'm certain people are wondering why that intersection is closed. It probably will be closed at least for a couple weeks, depending on how long it takes to get to the extent of the plume of where that material traveled to. So they'll be working on it for a while, and it's really unfortunate because that was actually a really nice road section they put in there, and I'm sure it'll get put back nicely, but certainly an inconvenience if you're trying to go through there. And finally, before I open it up for questions, the library Friends book sale opened up again today, so it's good that they were actually able to get that back up and going. Circulation jumped significantly when the library opened, which is no surprise. You've probably seen the book walk in Riverview Park. If you've been to the park, if you haven't, go down. There's a nice kids book you can walk by and read. They're hard working on the summer reading programs, and they have limited computer access at the library, but they're working on expanding access to that. Currently, there's just been some IT issues with the system sitting for so long and needing to be updated. So lots of good stuff going on there. So with that, are there any questions?
Go ahead, Councilor Kaur.
Yeah, I have several questions, Tom. Going back to the communications portion, I didn't catch the name.
It's Jaycor, Jaycor.
COR, God, thank you. During the goal setting session, I talked about the council page on the website, and it needs a lot of work, and I think it can be a lot more interactive than it is. I mean, I'd like to actually see a counselor's, section on there where we can maybe put some information out to the community as well. So just food for thought as you're going through this process on that. 4th of July, Independence Day. It's really important that everybody know we do have a backup plan. So if everything, goes south, we do have plans to have fireworks at another location. That hopefully we can pull off what we're trying to pull off. But you're right, it's going to take an army of volunteers. And I just want to check, Karen, did you get all my communications about Independence Days and the information that needs to go out? Okay, part of that was some information for counselors that's going to come directly to you, so you'll know what the deal is and what we're trying to accomplish here. And then I think that was it. Was that 3 questions? I thought I had another one. Nope, I think that's it. Thank you.
Additional questions for Mr. Pesmer? I'm going to just take a moment and say I've been working. Councilor Roden, are you trying to get in?
Yeah, I have a question, but go ahead and finish what you were saying.
Okay, I just want to say that I've been working with Mr. Pessimir on a number of different projects, and I will tell you, the staff is just flat out. They're going 100% all the time, day and night. And there was a thing called a weekend, but I don't think they know what those are. So anyway, thank you. Councilor Roden.
Yeah, I just had a question for the allocation for the money for the communications people to come in and to update the website. Is that something that is being funded because that was something we came up in our last work session, or is this something from the previous council?
Yeah, so great question, Councilor Roden. So it was actually something that we identified previously and was underscored by council during the priority setting meeting. But we had allocated monies and talked about that when we did the budget just a little less than a year ago in order to do this. And we had hoped to have them on in January, but that was what I was referring to as kind of the learning process for me, is to try and make sure that we did this right. And so I spent extra time making sure that we had what we needed in place to be successful there. So
I hope you don't hear it keep saying it's unmuted every time I get on, but yeah, thank you. That I really appreciate that. I was a little confused on that.
Great. Thank you. Okay, if there are no additional questions, Mr. Pessimir, I think you have a staff presentation from Mr. Martinez.
Yes, just turn it over to Ramon quickly. He'll probably pop on here in a second, so I'll filibuster a little bit. But he definitely wanted to talk about some initiatives that he's been kind of working on as our community engagement manager.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm really excited to share an effort that's been in the works for the last few months, and something that has been picking up traction thanks you to Sean and Courtney, and now Kendra is in the mix. So it's really great to have a really great team to fine tune the whole idea. But it's Bike Indie Oregon. And the idea is really being able to have this website created so that people can come to our community and really take advantage of some of the great road routes and even gravel routes that are in our community. And also it has another component of really being able to offer free events in our community. Our first event, it's actually this weekend, and I'll explain more in a little bit. And then third is just really being able to, with people coming over to our community, of course, it's going to be able to be positive for our local businesses. So really, we've kind of created something that's we call like an indie bike pass. So I'll share a little bit more about this in a bit and how that works. But if I'm just going to share the screen real quick, and just I won't go into great depth in terms of for this here, but let's see here. But I'm just going to just give you a quick rundown. And this is something that we've had a lot of eyes on this website and really being able to kind of craft it in the way that we're kind of envisioning. And so again, right at the top, the three main focuses would be the routes, the weekends, these free drop the hammer weekends, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and also our bike indie pass. So right here, the idea is every season we're going to have 4 featured routes. So the top 2 here are road routes, and then the bottom 2 are mixed terrain routes. And something that if you guys when you guys get a chance, I will encourage you to check it out. And I've set this up in a way where you can actually it can be interactive. And if you go even to the downtown area, you'll be able to kind of see that there's the hotels featured, got the parking lot, got the campground all set up there, public parking, local establishments. These are currently the establishments that are going to be participating for our Bike Indie Pass, and I'll go ahead and touch on that a little bit. But one thing to note too is that these events that I'm going to chat with you a bit about, it's going to have what you call a Strava segment. It's a free tool. It's a really great tool for being able to keep in touch with friends and anyone you might see in at events, and really great to keep track of activities, whether it be hiking, running, biking, swimming, just anything under the sun that involves any kind of activity, pretty much it's on Strava. And it's an international, it's pretty popular around the globe. And I'll chat a little bit more about that in a little bit. And also mentioning that we're going to be using the Ride with GPS platform too. So this is basically a way where people can download for free routes to their preferred device, whether it be whether they're just using a smartphone, whether they're using a Garmin, whether they're on a Wahoo device. That's actually the name of the brand. And also there's also options for you to print out the routes, and it's I can go into that later too if well, I'll probably skip that. But here's what I was chatting with you a little bit about our Drop the Hammer weekends. And again, I'm just kind of just giving you a very brief overview, and for the in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into every single bit on this portion here. I just want to just give you a nice scan through of what we highlighted. And of course, this is our lodging area, lodging section, and we also feature our camping, our camping availability, and also kind of having a little bit of a words of advice or just things to keep in mind when you're out on the road. Essentially, when you're out riding, you are a vehicle, and we're encouraging people to really keep that in mind, and because safety is of pinnacle importance. And really kind of trying to get trying to put really interesting content up here. We also have our Instagram up and running, so if you actually click on each one, you can kind of see these are some folks that came in this weekend. Really being able to kind of really make this a very fun and really pleasing modern website to visit. So now I'm going to chat with you about the routes. So routes here this is going to be our intention here with this is to really being able to kind of have this growing catalog of routes in the area. And these are some additional routes that these are some of my personal favorite ones. And so really being able to kind of have people come down here, if they're visiting the hotel and they don't know where to go and where to ride. I mean, we hope that this can be a very useful and helpful resource. And here's the Drop the Hammer weekend. So here's something that we've been really working on. And so gonna have this, I have already 5 routes already all laid out, and we're also gonna have a family-friendly route. And we're gonna have that route all along the river. And Fred and his family are actually gonna be helping with course with stopping and controlling traffic and whatnot in one intersection. But we got prizes. The hotel's actually going to be giving away 6 hotel rooms as prizes, and the Parallel 45, and also the tap station and the bike peddler in downtown Salem will be contributing prizes as well. And we're going to be able to, this is a completely free event. And when people sign up through this event, through the bike registration website here, we have them go into this, let's see here. You have them go here. Are you guys able to see this page here?
Yes.
Okay, so basically we have people sign up for their routes, and when they can sign up for more than one route, and also the waiver that's included here is the waiver that's been included, that's been approved by our city attorney. So we are well covered there. And just kind of when you all have some time, you guys can definitely check this out and spread the word. It'd be great for that. And I can give you guys some more information in terms of, you guys can just go to bikereg.com, Drop the Hammer, Spring 21. And we've been putting all this information out on our social media platforms. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and then also on Strava. And I've been spreading the word with my bike club, and a lot of people are really excited to come out. And one piece that I'm going to show you real quick is just to kind of give you an idea of where people are coming from this weekend. Would be right here. I got a little heat map. Are you guys able to see this map?
Yes.
Okay, so we got people coming from around the area, and it's really great to have them come on out. and really excited to put our best foot forward and really being able to showcase some good writing in our community. And I am also going to show you last bit here would be, let's see, drop the hammer. Let's see, go. All right, so let me just do this one more time. Okay. All right, so and lastly here will be our Bike Indie Pass. So this Bike Indie Pass is something that we hope can be a hit. We're gonna be giving these out for the first time this weekend, and we're also gonna be giving a stack to the hotel so that they can include in their bike package that they're putting together. And right now, these are some local businesses who are participating and putting some specials on here. And we didn't make a really big call for this because we want this to be kind of a trial, see how it goes for this first week. But we intend to have more on here. And yeah, and really excited about that because let's see here. You guys were not able to see the Bike Indie Pass, were you, or the bike page?
Yeah. No Bike Indie Pass.
Sorry, I apologize about that.
There we go.
So here we go here. So this is our Bike Indie Pass again. So these are the businesses that we're going to be participating at the moment. And again, this is going to be more of a trial and see how it goes. But really am very optimistic about this pass because this is actually going to be something where you can actually tape it behind your phone, and you can right here in the description. There's I'll send you. Better yet, instead of me sharing it on the screen, I'll send you guys a copy. And really, we have this page that's going to be updated constantly instead of us having to make a massive print out of all these all these current specials. So I think we're going to be able to kind of keep it simple that way. And yeah, so that's kind of the website in general. And down the road, I'm very optimistic about this website being able to serve as a hub for all things cycling in our community. And within, and then I just want to I'll just stop there, and then I do have something else I want to finish with. But are there any questions at the moment?
Questions for the presenter?
Martin.
So are we doing anything in conjunction with any of the travel organizations, Travel Salem, Travel Oregon, anything to, and I imagine as you move forward, this gets a little more solid, but working with some of those other organizations to get the word out about this?
Yeah, great question. That's actually something that we made sure to reach out to organizations such as Travel Salem. Actually, Travel Salem, some folks who work on their social media and website work, they were able to look at the website, making sure that things are nice and fine-tuned. But actually, also very well connected with the OBRA community, so Oregon Bicycle Racing Association. They've been helping spread the word about this. The bike club that I'm a part of in Salem, they are all aware of this. We got some race directors coming in from Monroe, Corvallis, and even as far as Eugene and Springfield, they're going to be coming down here as well. And they've all been informed about this. And also, like other organizations such as Cycle Oregon, for instance, they've been having eyes on this. They're following us on Instagram. It's really great to see how things are just kind of just naturally kind of coming together in the social media realm. And people, especially on Strava is a great, it's been a great tool for us to be able to share about what's happening in our community. And with this whole Bike Indie effort, I just kind of feel that this has so much potential to just really be able to make Independence really a cycling mecca. I mean, it's a really great community it's no secret that it is a great place, especially with the Willamette Scenic Bikeway, but just this can kind of really reinforce some of the goals that we're trying to achieve. And yeah, and then just ultimately are there any questions before I kind of continue with or leave off with my last little point here before I
Keep rolling. Go ahead, Councilor Corr, excuse me.
Great work, Ramon. It's really wonderful to see. My sister and brother-in-law moved here last November. They're both bikers. They both just got their bikes serviced, and they're ready to jump in.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And just last bit I just want to just mention is this. I mean, I am a firm believer, I do community engagement work, and I really enjoy what I do. I deeply enjoy what I do. But it's kind of a background for me. I mean, grew up in a very competitive household, really got exposed into sports. And when it comes to sports and recreation, I believe that recreation helps build a stronger community. And also just really being able to have these opportunities available in smaller communities, I think that can be very powerful. I'm from a small town myself, and just being able to be exposed to sports and opportunities, that's really kind of led me to paths that I never expected. And I've also gotten a chance to wear the Team USA uniform, and that's something I'm deeply proud of. And I know Mayor Mercado knows the feeling. And but it's just really something that I'm I feel very grateful to be able to kind of work towards this initiative and effort, and really big thanks. It was not a solo effort. Big thank you to Sean Irvine and Corning Williams for being able to help put their eyes on this, and Kendra and get Neil on board, and other friends in the biking community throughout the valley. They've been able to pitch in and suggest, and really excited.
Great. Additional questions? I'll just add that what a wonderful creative way to reach out and support our local businesses, to support our community with health and fitness and activities. We have hit a great target market of folks who want to come, who want to enjoy what we have here, to pedal through the hills, to pedal through the valley, and then stop and eat and drink and socialize and enjoy our community. So thank you, Ramon, and all the folks that are involved in making this happen. So thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation this evening. We're going to continue moving forward here. We're going to open a public hearing on the proposed real property sale. So I'm going to open a hearing regarding the sale of the surplus real property located at 112 South 3rd Street in Independence. I'm going to open that hearing. I'm going to ask for the staff report from Mr. Pessimir.
So thank you, Mayor. Actually, I think probably before I guess I'll give the staff report real quick, and then we can have the public hearing. It's important that we have that public hearing. It's hard following Ramon. He has a ton of excitement for his project, and I'm not as excited about selling property, although I am pretty excited about actually getting rid of this particular piece of property. But so this is really the sale of the old museum site. This was something that we've been talking about for a while as we create the new museum space. We put that site up for sale a number of weeks ago. Council has previously declared the property surplus, and so we're just kind of in the final steps of making this finished. We did get 2 proposals for the property, and we accepted one mostly because they were a very motivated purchaser who definitely wants to own and live in the property. They made us a full price offer plus $1,000 and offered to put 2.4% of the purchase price down. The full price offer was $350,000. And really, quite frankly, they have the money to purchase the site, and they really weren't asking for a lot. So this is really a very straightforward property transaction using standard real estate forms. We're represented by CBRE, and so far everything is going really smoothly. So I think we're kind of at that step where we're looking to satisfy the state requirements, which was to have a public notice, which we've accomplished, to have a public hearing tonight, and then to hopefully, if council is acceptable with it, to authorize me to execute the final documents and to make this an official sale to the proposer. And I should say that the purchaser is going under the name of Unfettered Rentals, and I believe the purchaser name is Rebecca Fetters.
Are there questions for staff from council members? I don't see anybody flagging. Go ahead, Councilor Roden. Were you trying to ask? Okay, I'm going to continue moving. Are you?
No, I wasn't. No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I must have pushed a button. I wasn't asking anything.
You're okay. That's fine. Is there any?
Okay.
Thank you. Karen, is there anybody out there that wanting to make any public testimony?
No, Your Mayor.
Okay, and have we received any written testimony?
No, we have not.
We have not. Without objection, I'm going to close the hearing. Without objection, the hearing's now closed. Okay, folks, we need to make a decision on the matter, and there is a motion in your packet.
I move that resolution 21-1547 be adopted as presented.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second by Councilor Martin Willis. Is there further discussion? I hear no further discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And opposed? I hear no opposition. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move forward to the next one. We have Mr. Vander. We have a release of an easement, please.
Hi there, everybody.
Good evening, Fred.
How are you folks doing? Good. So the first thing I am here for tonight is the release of an easement. It's really two separate easements. One is for a stormwater pond and one is for the access to the pond. Now, the issue with this is when Brandy Meadows 1 was completed, that's out there at about 9th and Chestnut, let's say. When Brandy Meadows 1 was completed, we knew that they needed a stormwater facility. And rather than sort of doing their ultimate design for the stormwater facility for the entire site, they created a temporary stormwater facility just to serve phase 1. We knew when they did that they would ultimately get rid of that stormwater facility as future development occurred on the site and their larger regional solution was installed. They have started installing that regional solution as part of phase 2, and it's gradually going to get bigger as part of the phases 3, 4, and additional phases. So based on that, we believe that these two easements are ready to be released, and the land under them to be used for future phases of the development. I think everything is pretty straightforward in the information that you received, but I'm willing to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Vander? Tom, take us.
Yeah, you just mentioned that the permanent stormwater facility is being constructed or is under construction. Is it not functioning yet?
No, so it's a great question. Thank you very much. I apologize for not being clear with my language. So they are constructing it right now, and it will be complete and ready to go as part of the phase 2 of Brandy Meadows. And in phase 2 of Brandy Meadows, the stormwater pond is in a larger sort of park area over there by the South Fork Ash Creek. And so they are going, as part of the plat for phase 2, the final plat for phase 2, which actually divides the lots, they're going to dedicate that to the city. And so that will be ours, and it will be functional at the time that plat is recorded. We do what we are hoping to do tonight is get your folks' approval to to execute this release. But then we do not want to do it until we actually have that stormwater facility in hand, if that makes sense.
That's really my question. So we will not release this easement until that's completed and functioning.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Okay, this is an action item.
Yes, I move to declare the temporary access easement and stormwater detention system easement and detention system maintenance agreement dated July 19th, 2019 and recorded August 23rd, 2019, instrument number 2019-00149, 009149, and the storm and access easement dated August 9th, 2019 and recorded August 23rd, 2019, instrument number 2019-009150 as abandoned and no longer in use by the city, and authorize the city manager to execute any documents necessary to release these easements in an executed and recorded release of easement.
Glad you got to read that. That's a motion. And I need a second.
I'll second that.
I
and
second
wanna
that.
Thank Councilor Morton for doing that.
Thank you, Councilor Takis. I heard you also, Councilor Roden. Is there further discussion on this? I hear no further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed. Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's move forward. We are going to open a public hearing on 2021-01 in the Independence Development Code, Chapter 58, Sign Code. I have a script I have to read here, so here we go. This evening, we'll have a public hearing on legislative amendment 2021-01 to consider amendments to the Independence Development Code, subchapter 58, Sign Code. The City Council will make a final decision based on the complete record, including testimony received at tonight's public hearing. These proceedings will be recorded. This hearing will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and the state of Oregon. This is a type 4 legislative procedure. At the beginning of the public hearing tonight, staff will identify the applicable substantive criteria from the city's comprehensive plan and or the state of Oregon statewide planning goals. For anyone wishing to speak, please use the speaker card that provided. When you're asked to speak, you will be recognized and state your name and address for the record. Before we begin, does any council or wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest? I see no one waving my hands. Okay, so I'm going to officially open the hearing. I now open the public hearing for LA 2021-01 Development Code Amendment Subchapter 58 Sign Code. Mr. Evander, the staff report, please.
Perfect. So in your packet, you will see where this this proposal applies. It applies to residential zones along Highway 51. Basically, the issue is this. We have gotten a couple of requests from folks to expand the amount of residential signage that's allowed along Highway 51 in the residential zone. Currently, under our sign code, we have different standards for the different zones that you're in. If you're in a residential zone, you get 24 square feet of signage. You don't get a changing image sign. If you're in a commercial or an industrial zone, you get 3-4 square foot per linear foot of frontage up to 150 square feet, or 300 square feet if it's just on a building. Now, the difference between 150 square feet and 24 square feet is pretty significant. Also, the ability to do something like a changing image sign is also very significant. Now, where this comes into play is especially for those public service uses that are along Highway 51, like the fire district. The fire district property is in the residential high density zone. Right now, they are allowed 24 square feet of signage. They are not allowed a changing image sign. To address that situation, they asked if they could have some additional signage. We looked at the situation. We considered a variety of alternatives, including potentially rezoning the property. And we elected that, when I say we, I mean me and the Planning Commission elected or considered that the easiest way, the most effective way to address their concern was to pursue this change rather than pursuing a zoning change. So what the change is it would allow in limited instances, if you're a residential zone, if you're a public service use on a residential zoned property along Highway 51, you could have some additional signage. You could have 24 square feet of signage, and then you could have another 24 square feet of signage for a changing image sign. Ultimately, that's what this change would do. It is a fairly minor change, but that's really what it's intended to do. We sent this change to the state as part of their notification requirements. We did not hear anything back from the state. We issued a notice of this in the newspaper for the Planning Commission public hearing. We didn't hear any sort of negative feedback about that. We've had this on our website for, I don't know, a few months at this point, and we just haven't heard anything negative about these changes. So based on that, the Planning Commission held the public hearing on this at their meeting in March. They recommended unanimously that you folks approve of this change. It is before you tonight as a public hearing. Again, we did notice this public hearing as well. So that's really what this is. Like I say, it's a small change, but it is intended to allow some additional flexibility and sign allowances for public service uses in residential zones along Highway 51.
Questions for our staff? Okay, I see no questions. Is there any public comment to be made? Any testimony? Is there anybody out there that wishes to testify? Karen's waving no, and I am also going to guess there is no written testimony related to this. Okay, without objection, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is now officially closed. Okay, and so we're going to go to the other public hearing and then do both of these at the end. Is that what we're doing, Fred?
That's the plan.
Okay, thank you. All right, I get to read a script again, folks. I'll open a public hearing this evening. We have a public hearing on Legislative Amendment 2021-02 to consider amendment the Independence Development Code Subchapter 80 Site Design Review. The City Council will make a final decision based on the complete record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. These proceedings are recorded. This hearing will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and the state of Oregon. This is a Type 4 legislative procedure. At the beginning of the public hearing tonight, staff will identify the applicable substantive criteria from the city's comprehensive plan and or the state of Oregon's statewide planning goals. For anybody wishing to speak, we're asking you to use the speaker card that provided. When called to speak, you must be recognized and you'll state your name and address for the record. Before we begin, does any counselor wish to declare an actual potential conflict of interest in this matter? I see no one flagging me. Okay, I will open the public hearing on LA 2021-02 Development Code Amendment Revision of Subchapter 8 Site Design Review. Mr. Vander, I think you have the staff report.
Yes, I do. So this is another very small change that is being proposed before you tonight. This is another small change that the Planning Commission considered. Now, while this is small, I think that this one is a very important change, and hopefully I can explain why. So our site design review section of our code allows expansions of buildings by 25%, right? So it does that, it allows that without going through the site design review process. It's essentially an exemption. So if you've got a building and you're expanding it by 25%, you're exempt from site design review. Now, why is that an issue? Well, in the past, people have taken that 25% and expanded their building 25%. And then they took their expanded building and expanded it another 25% and taken that 20, and then it keeps on going. And essentially what happens is you're able to essentially miss out on the site design review process by using this series of consecutive exempt permits essentially, or exempt projects. Now, we are convinced that that was never the intent of that section. The site design review process is intended to offer people the opportunity to comment on projects, right? It's intended to ensure that some of the quality of life things that we value are in fact achieved by some of these developments that are ongoing. And as a result, what this change would do is just clarify that you cannot use this 25% consecutively. Also, if you're beyond a certain size, you have to go through site design review anyways, because it's going to impact the neighbors regardless. Now, in your staff report, there's just a couple of points that I'll make. On page 3 of the staff report, you'll see I just cut and pasted in the purpose section of the site design review standards. You'll see that what these standards are intended to do are really quality of life things. They want to ensure the proper functioning of the site. They want to conserve the city's natural beauty. They want to conserve the city's historic and visual character. They want to sustain the comfort, health, and tranquility of the community. And when a project is able to essentially bypass that process, we can actually ensure that many of those things are actually achieved. Site design review looks at things like building design. It looks at things like stormwater requirements. It looks at things like traffic impact analysis, right? These are important things that are intended to preserve community character. So like I say, it's a very small change, but ultimately it is, I would argue, a very important change to make. You'll note the small change, it's just to one paragraph on attachment A of your packet. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this. Again, same sort of deal. They recommended approval of this. It was unanimous. We issued all of the same notices as the last hearing that I went through. Are there any questions about that?
I have a question.
Councilor Roden.
Yeah, how often is this 25% taken advantage of, do you think? Can you name a building that I would know that has had this happen?
I would rather not name a building that this has happened. But yes, this happens, and it was in the process of someone trying to go through this that I was like, no, that cannot be what that means. So yes, this is actually a thing that happens, and I do think that this is, I mean, it is a good change to make.
But so you're saying that someone can still go through this process and increase the size of their property 25%. This process just stops them from doing it consecutively?
Right, exactly. This would be
Okay.
a one-time 25% expansion. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Roden. It would still allow the one-time 25% expansion, but it would limit it at a certain size, and it would also say you can't do that again after you've done it once.
So you cannot do it again ever? And is that for the property or for the owner of the property?
That's a great question. It would be for the property. The Planning Commission Act that asked that exact same question.
Okay. I'm just concerned that I don't know. As I reflect on this, I'm just trying to. I just don't want to burden the community with it. But that's why I was just wondering if somebody else comes in and wants to change something. Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Additional questions, Kathy Martin-Lithis?
Well, I guess just a clarification. So Fred, am I correct in understanding that they could do further expansion? They would just have to undergo site design review.
Exactly. That's exactly
Okay,
right.
thank
Yeah,
you.
this isn't saying that you're tapped out at a certain
Right,
size.
that you're
It's
one
just-
and done, but it would be subject to site design review if you wanted to do additional expansion. I don't
Right.
know if that helps at all, Councilor Roden.
Well, it actually has me bring up another question. Does the site review also include assessment of the property value after the renovation?
I guess I don't
Does that
quite
make sense?
I
So
don't quite,
I
I'm
guess,
just,
so I'm not sure
sorry.
if your question exactly, but let me try and take an answer to that. So if it wouldn't include any development charges unless they expanded, the use on the system. So you would probably include, transportation, if there was an expansion, but if they didn't increase their water or sewage usage, it wouldn't increase that. If your question is, would it increase their property tax value? Yes, the county would come in as they do every January and look at a site. And if it had expanded, then they would assess additional taxes based on the improvement like they would for any other project.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question.
Good. Are there additional questions? I don't see anybody else raising additional questions, and I do have to ask, is there any public testimony that, Karen, is there anybody out there to publicly testify? And we have no written testimony regarding this, is that correct? Okay, so without objection, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. We are now into well, I guess we'll have discussion, deliberation, I guess. That's what we're going to do. So now, Fred, we get to move forward to the actual, since we've had the public hearings, we can go into the item 9.6, the council bill, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so councilors, we're now on page 61. And we have the memo which makes the changes that were discussed. And does anybody have any comments related to either of these that we need to talk about? It is an action item if somebody wants to suggest action, and there's still, that does not preclude further discussion if anybody wants to. Somebody help start this.
Sure, I'll dive in. I move to read the proposed ordinance, Council Bill number 2021-06 in full as the text is contained in the council packet for the first time.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Is there a discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? No opposition. Motion carries.
An ordinance amending Independence Development Code subchapter 58, sign ordinance, and subchapter 80, site design review, and declaring an effective date.
Second motion, please.
I move to read the proposed ordinance, Council Bill number 2021-06 for the second time by title only.
The motion.
I second it.
Second by Councilor Job. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 In opposition? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And then the third one, please.
An ordinance amending Independence Development Code subchapter 58, sign ordinance, and subchapter 80, site design review, and declaring an effective date.
Now the third motion, please. Councilor Martin Willis.
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance, Council Bill number 2021-06.
A motion.
Second.
Second by Councilor Morton. Is there discussion? Is everybody okay with everything? Okay. I hear no other discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? Without opposition, the motion passes. Thank you very much.
The bill has passed and will be assigned ordinance number 1590.
Going to page 81, which is parking code update. Chief Mason. Chief, I see your
Yeah,
your
so
name.
while he's connecting in, sometimes it just takes a little minute. So this is something that I actually asked the Chief Robert Mason to bring back, just as really calling this to question. We've had a lot of conversation about this over the last year and a half. And we had a little bit of direction from council when we last talked about this in January, took it to the Traffic Safety Commission, and I'll let the chief report out on that. But we're just looking forward to either move forward with this or not move forward with it, and just get this finished up one way or another. Of course, if you have other stuff you would like us to do, we're happy to do that as well, but just trying to make sure that we finally have a decision on this if possible. So with that, Chief, you want to go ahead?
Thank you,
Chief,
Mr.
good evening.
Bessemer. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I've asked Fred to stay on because we have been working on this particular code change together throughout. So again, as Mr. Bessemer said, this is the same code change for the Independence Municipal Parking Code that we brought to you on January 12th for consideration. And at that time, action was deferred for further review. Since then, staff and the Traffic Safety Commission have both reviewed the proposed changes again. And today I come back to you with the same recommendation for adoption that we had previously come in with. And with that, we'd just like to acknowledge that I know there are some concerns. Specifically, I think they lie in section C, numbers 2 and numbers 3, which are almost at the very end of this document. Which is the prohibition to park a disconnected trailer on the city street and the prohibition to park a recreational vehicle except for loading and unloading on city streets. And just a reminder, we did have legal review this before we brought it forward last time. And that is why we don't have a specific time on how long you can have a recreational vehicle. But we much prefer to use what is reasonable for loading and unloading as our guide there. And for the disconnected trailer piece, if that is something council is uncomfortable with, then I mean, we would be, obviously you can modify these codes any way you see fit tonight. And that's really, I mean, what we're coming back to see kind of what direction you want to go.
Questions for Chief Mason? Councilor Martin Willis.
I know one other point of discussion was, for instance, dumpsters parked on the street while, you know, folks are, you know, clearing out a property or whatever. And that there would be a permit process for that. Did we have any discussion with Brants as to sort of whether that would be the homeowner that would have to go get the permit, whether Brants would add that into their cost and they would communicate with when they were going to deliver or pick up a dumpster that would be parked on the street, that sort of thing? Just curious.
I'm pausing to see if Fred comes on. I do not know if we had that conversation. I know he did check with Brants on dumpster sizes, and that helped guide the size that we said would require a permit. And Fred, can you help me out on what we're talking about with what size dumpster here and what the reasoning behind it was?
Yeah, because the little ones I don't think are an issue. It's when you get the big sort of construction size when you're remodeling and that.
Right, and that's what this essentially, it's anytime. And I mean, again, we're not saying that you can't park any of these things on your property. You know, if you have a 1.5 cubic yard, which is a standard sort of dumpster, if you have that and you have it on your property, that's fine. If it you know, you could absolutely do something like that. It's just when you're putting it on the street and leaving it on the street is really where we felt that the sort of the permit would be required. Now, we didn't talk about exactly how that works, what that process looks like, but I mean, I would assume it's the homeowner that would do that.
As would I. I would think we would notify Brants that a permit is now required, and when they get an order, they would ask if someone had one. They generally work really well with the city on matters. We would work all that out if you approve it.
So, well, and I guess that's kind of what I'm after, because I mean, we've had large dumpsters. I do not have room at the front of my property to put one. So we've utilized the street. So is that then date specific? Is that a 3-day permit, a 5-day permit?
So Councilor Martin, well, let me just kind of jump in here because that's a great question. And typically what happens when we have legislation like this is we will write a policy, administrative policy to outline all the rules, come up with a form that people can fill out and a process. If we feel like that is challenging or difficult, we would probably bring that back to council as a separate resolution to kind of walk through those details. But 95% of the time, we can come up with some common sense policy that would actually create the rules so people can see it, understand it, go to on our website, get it, or come in and pick it up and understand exactly what the requirements would be. If there were any fees for that, then we would incorporate that into the fee schedule as we would with anything else. And we try to keep those fees as small as we possibly can. And I don't even know at this point what we would do there. So.
Okay, I was going to say, because the dumpsters are a little steep on their own without adding additional costs. So, okay, thank you for addressing that.
Quick question, and maybe this is something that would be in that administrative policy, Tom, but what happens? You've got a disconnected trailer that sits out there. I imagine Sue drives by and puts a little notice on it saying you got to move this. Then what happens? What's the recourse after that?
I was referring only to dumpsters on the administrative policy because I think that was the item that was being called out. I think I'll let the chief respond to what they would do on a code enforcement type of issue. So
honestly, we've struggled with how we would handle that. We would try to figure out who owned the trailer, and if they didn't move it after we found it and requested it be moved, we wouldn't have the authority to immediately tow that, but we would start a process of it being an abandoned vehicle, which is the process that we already have in place now. We can't just remove things from the street. It takes some time and notice. And we actually go quite a long way on that. We make sure that there are parking tickets issued that aren't paid before we go on with that process. So it's not something that we can make happen in a day or two. It takes longer than that. And with these trailers, specifically these, if you think of a disconnected utility trailer, for example, it's not required to be licensed. So there's no way for us to figure out who owns it even without checking around the neighborhood. And then you don't always find the owner either. People leave these things just kind of about. Unfortunately, we have had to tow several in our town that are just like abandoned, full of junk, and pay the cost on that. As a city, but these specific items we're trying to address here are really the smaller utility trailers that people are using in their trade, quite honestly, and taking up a lot of the parking with their utility trailers when they're not in use. And we get complaints from other neighbors that don't have anywhere to park because someone has parked utility trailers taking up a majority of the residential parking. So,
yeah, thank you.
Additional questions?
I'd just like to make a comment that I do think this will disenfranchise a lot of people, and I don't really know that this is the answer. I like a 72-hour amount of time that you can stay. I would even be willing to say 48 hours that a vehicle could be parked and then it needs to move, doing something. But I know there's a lot of people in Independence that do have trailers. And this is, they don't even know it's coming. Where do you expect people to park their trailers? All the storage units are full. A lot of people can't park it on their property. There's just not adequate space for it. So what do you do at that point when nobody has a place to park their trailer for their employment or recreation or whatever it is?
I would disagree that that's coming. I'm sure they've had code officers knock on doors and ask them about it. So I think that's there, but I get your point about and that was kind of where I was going with it too, is what's the recourse for the owner? We don't have a place for them to park their business vehicles anywhere. Maybe that's an opportunity for an entrepreneur, to create something. But when you live in a tight community, like I live on Northgate, the other side of Northgate, there's a lot of people who have who have businesses and they have trailers all over the place. And there's already a ton of cars. So this is definitely a problem. You know, it's not just a problem for the parking, it's a problem for safety. You know, I worry about when I pull out of my driveway and there's a huge Dodge Ram pickup truck with a trailer in front of my house. I can't see if kids are coming down the street. So it's a huge safety issue.
Isn't there a new storage place going in at the corner of Hoffman and Highway 99? Just
Yeah.
There is.
Councilor Roden, you're
Yeah,
trying to get in here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I agree with Counselor Job. I think that this would disenfranchise a lot of people. We have current laws and codes that, you know, prevent people to park in an unsafe manner on the streets. And I'm just not sure at this time we want to do something, especially when there's a lot of ambiguity with this, with how we're going to enforce it and how we're going to get fees. And if we can even, you know, enforce these things on trailers, that I just don't think this is the time, you know, that we maybe do this. And I know you probably don't want to hear that we wait, but, you know, we're still at hopefully the tail end of this COVID situation. And I would hate to have to, you know, put in all these restrictions on all these small businesses who are just trying to make it again and say, hey, now you have to find a place to pay to park your trailer to be able to afford to work. I'm just not sure this is the time.
Well, and there's time restrictions on the storage units, so you can only get in and out during certain times. So if you start early or you have to travel or something, then you need to wait till the gates open. I just feel like we are lacking with HOAs in Independence for a reason. Nobody likes them. And if people are really adamant about, you know, their streets being trailer free, then, you know, living in an HOA is a great option. But I think most people aren't really that concerned about it.
Chief, I have a question for you. What's done in other communities around the state? How do they deal with the trailer? Because I think that's what the difficult part is, the trailer and an RV thing. Can you talk about that?
RVs are often not allowed to be parked on streets in cities, bigger cities especially. I mean, for the obvious reason, they're big generally, and they take up a lot of parking. The smaller utility trailers, I haven't seen as much like outright banning of, but I have seen it. It exists in places where, especially growing smaller communities. I mean, that's where you're seeing it. That's where the codes that we found this language came from. We looked at several codes from kind of the suburbs of the metro area, and Corvallis is where we came up with some of our language. So people struggle, not just here, but in many places, especially, I would say more so with recreational vehicles than with the disconnected trailers. And part of the struggle with recreational vehicles is people are living in them on city streets and just moving enough to continue to live on city streets. And when they pull up in front of, you know, a house of a person that doesn't want them in front of their house, then those calls come to us and we explain that they can be there. It's a public street. And if they're moving about, it doesn't really continue to be as much of a problem. It's when they end up unable to run. And we've had that here where they came into town and no longer operate. And now we have large abandoned RVs on the street that they really just can't even get out of there because they stopped running because they are not in great repair. So,
and to me, that's a completely different issue. And if there's a way to write up something for that issue, I can understand that. You know, they don't live there. They're not your neighbor. I mean, they're technically your neighbors because they're living out in front of your house, but it's not, you know, that's a completely different issue. So I would be willing to discuss that.
I'm sorry, it is, and I agree. But in trying to write a code, you really can't specify where people live to say they can or can't park on public streets because they are public.
So anybody can live in a trailer on any street right now?
No.
There's already an ordinance for that, isn't there? I
Yeah.
remember passing that several years ago.
The difficulty is knowing whether somebody's living in it or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, Mr. Mayor, in answer to your comment earlier, the storage unit on Hoffman and 99 is almost full already.
Okay. Counselor Takis, you were signaling you'd like to get in.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, the public streets are not there for private businesses to park their equipment. And I sat in on many of those traffic safety commissions where neighbors were coming in and saying, they can't find parking because this person has a trailer or two or three parked on the street. I would think those people could park in their own driveways with their trailers, and then they can, fight with everybody else for a parking space on the street. I just don't think we necessarily need to supply parking for private businesses.
Yeah, Tom, and to your point, this is exacerbated by the fact that residents have multiple cars. If they had fewer cars, they could probably park a trailer in their driveway. But there are houses in my neighborhood where there's 4 or 5 cars to a house.
8 or 9 here, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a couple different ways we can take this. We can move to pass this. We can move to amend it. We can, depends what council wants to do, or you could do nothing. What is your pleasure?
I would ask for a little bit more time. I do have people that wanted to either come in and talk or wanted to do letters and stuff because they weren't aware of this. So I know that there are people out there that just, they want to voice their opinion.
I want to pass it with safety. I think that's the bigger issue here.
Okay, other comments?
Okay, so Chief, let's say that, that the trailer is then connected to a vehicle, then it would just be subject to the standard 72-hour rule, right?
Sorry, I'm muted. No, not necessarily. So this has some size restrictions also in this code language.
Right, because I know that what it can't be over 8 feet wide or.
Correct, 23 feet long and 8 feet wide.
Right.
So, if it were within that, yes, it could be there if it was connected to a vehicle and less than those restrictions. Then it would be just like any other car parked on the street. The same exact codes would apply. And that is
because I guess the other thing to consider is with things like utility trailers, is if they are creating a hazard, even if the owner has insurance, liability extends from the attached vehicle. There is no liability on a trailer itself. So if it is parked individually on its own, then there is no liability coverage for the hazard that it creates. So that's kind of my concern. And so what much of what I'm hearing is, but they're using it for their business. They're using it for their business. Then connect it to your business truck and make sure that it moves at every 72 hours. It's not as if IPD and our code enforcement drives around looking for violations. I mean, those are complaint driven. So if that truck and that trailer sits there for 2 weeks and your neighbors are unable to park, and eventually, I think most of us, we kind of know, oh, my neighbor does yard maintenance. That unit, those units, belong to, him or her. We're not likely to call it in. It's when this mysterious trailer shows up and is parked in front of our house, and it's been there for 3 or 4 days and nobody in the neighborhood knows what it is. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to call that in. Sue comes out, cites the vehicle just like she would any other abandoned vehicle on the road. So, that's kind of, where I am on this. I'm not trying to force a business to have to put their trailer into the storage, but either use it or store it. I mean, that's what we require of any personal vehicle in town.
So if they use it, then it's fine.
Yeah, if it's
Okay,
attached to a
yeah,
vehicle, if they
yeah, if they're
use it,
using it, yeah.
provided it is not wider than 8 feet and longer than 23 or 24. And typically they're much, I mean, they're smaller than those dimensions. You know, they're like, 6 wide, maybe 7. And then they tend to be like 8 to 10 feet long. I mean, the ones that are parked on the street in my neighborhood.
That's just a trailer though. I don't know how long an average truck is. 15 feet, 17 feet.
The connected combination of a truck and a trailer would be over the 23 feet for a.
So would we consider that, I mean, I guess for those purposes, would we consider that a single unit?
If it's connected, yes.
Or would it be?
If this passes.
Okay, so that might be something to consider. Sorry, just to muddy the waters, Chief.
No,
I was trying to clarify.
It's not muddying the waters. We want to get it right, and it's not easy to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish without having these unforeseen problems that come out of a code that isn't well thought out. So I appreciate it.
May I ask how long public notice has been out on this particular issue?
A long time. I mean, we had it at traffic safety. I don't know the date, but Mr. Takis was with us in traffic safety for a long time, and it was publicly noticed then.
Okay.
Part of the Traffic Safety Commission, and then it was discussed.
That concerns me then that there are people that say for as much time as this has been publicly noticed, people that are saying they didn't know this was coming up and they still want to talk about it. I don't know that it's our obligation to have to continue this hearing for another 2, 3, 4 weeks or whatever in order to get people an opportunity to speak when it has been under public notice for so long.
I don't know that I would consider traffic. I don't know if I'd consider that public notice. Maybe put it in the paper or something because nobody watches those.
Yeah. So we put it in social media, city and
social media. Okay.
Media, several times it's gone out trying to get people to give us responses. So.
And asking them about trailers.
So Councilor Takis.
It was also put in public notice the last time it was brought up at council, wasn't it? Which was what, a month ago or whatever that was?
January 12th.
Yeah, thank you.
So maybe I can help here. We can do a couple of things. As I said, we can begin the passing process, but that could very well be a multi-step process, or we can amend this. The only way we could pass it tonight is if we had unanimous support, or if what we could do is begin the process and do. Karen, is it first and second or just first? If we don't have first reading, and then if we have a dissent, then it would come back as a unfinished business item at a future meeting. That would allow, that still gives us the time to anybody who wants to put in suggestions, ideas, because it's not a fait accompli, because then we'd have our second and third reading. That would still provide everybody the notice that this is being talked about, and if you have something to say, you better come say it. So that could be one way. What I'm seeing here is that we're in a bit of a conundrum. It's that no matter what we do, if we do nothing, there's a problem. If we do something, there's going to be some people, and in my door-to-doors, I've heard these stories on both sides. Where do I park my big rig, my long, it's not just the utility trailers, it's the longer ones. And so no matter what we do, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. And I agree with Chief that we want to make sure we get a good ordinance that works. So I don't know if that clarifies anything, but it does put us on a path. What do people think?
I think option number 1 is an excellent idea as far as getting this in the process of passage, Because again, it puts this out for public notice so that if people do have commentary about it, now is the time to make it. And commentary could also include, if you don't like the way this is written, what other suggestions do you have about how to deal with this issue?
Does that sound like a reasonable approach, folks? Because this is.
Yeah,
this-
I think that. I'm
Go ahead,
sorry.
Councilor Roden.
No, I'm trying to listen to what Councilor Kaur said, and I want to take into what she's saying about the travel trailers. And then Councilor Mortensen, I agree with that too. I think it would make me feel much better if we could pass this resolution and give people an opportunity one last time to speak up on it. So I think I agree with Councilor Mortensen. We should go with option 1 for this evening.
And to that end, then I move to read the proposed ordinance Council Bill 2021-01 in full as the text is contained in the council packet for the first time.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
And a second by Councilor Takis. Is there discussion on this motion? I hear no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And in opposition?
Nay.
Okay. Councilor Martin Willis votes no. And so
Oh,
that,
I didn't know we could do that.
yeah.
So I thought we were just doing the one motion and then,
No, what we're
Okay.
Well, we're doing the first reading
Okay.
with a no
Got
vote
it.
that then forces us to carry the second reading over to our next meeting.
this is my
Right.
first time saying no. Okay.
No, that's okay. So as I understand it, I have a no vote from Willis, Job, and Councilor Roden. Are you voting yes or no?
I'm voting no.
No, that's 3. And I'm getting a yes vote from Morton, Takis, and who am I missing here?
Or
Core. That's a yes. And so that makes a 3-3. So I'm going to vote yes on this at this time for this motion to keep to put, which will affect it. So that means it passes. That means we won't do any further activity on this tonight, and it will come back as an item of unfinished business in the future. Is everybody clear on that? And so
Yes.
just wanted everybody to know there's, so this will be on the agenda. I'm going to guess at the next meeting, I'll work with Tom, and if people have comments and discussions or other suggestions, okay?
Well, and I think a public reminder that written testimony can be submitted as well if this is not a convenient format or time for them. And so I guess if you have friends that would be impacted by this, this is a final opportunity for them to get those comments in that they've been meaning to do.
I see our city recorder flagging me. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that you knew, I do have to read the title of the ordinance.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. We're going to let her read the title of the ordinance. Go ahead, please.
An ordinance amending identified sections of Independence Municipal Code, Chapter 32, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 6, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, and declaring an effective date.
And I wanted to make really clear that my vote on this at this point was just to begin the process. I am open for consider other thoughts, amendments. This is just to get the process beginning and take it out of just fuzzy zone.
do we have time? Do we have time to get something into the water bill, the next water bill, before we address this again? That's the most potential coverage would be reaching every citizen through that.
Yes, we can.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do is, unless there's objection, we'll get this in the water bill notice, and so we won't have this on our next meeting. It'll be further out than that. Okay, so we'll work this into the appropriate time and let everybody have a notification. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good discussion. Not an easy issue. And I'm going to tell you from talking to mayors in other cities, we are not alone. Council announcements, please. Okay, I don't see anybody jumping up and down. And so if somebody would like to end our meeting, that would be.
Well, I was going to say one super quick thing. Thank you,
Please do.
Fred, for all your work on the code. Thank you, Chief, for your extraordinary patience with us. Those are my announcements.
I'd like to thank the chief too for being patient with me through this process, because I know we've talked about this. I really want to make sure this is right for the community before we go forward with this. And I want to thank Fred and Sean and everybody else for working really hard and getting this amazing city looking as well as it does. So I appreciate it. And then I vote to adjourn this meeting.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have a pleasant evening.